All right, I think we are on live. Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Wednesday webinar. Today we will be discussing financial wellness tips during COVID-19 and beyond. And I'm so thrilled that you are joining us on this beautiful June day. I'm consistently amazed by how many folks are willing to take time out of their busy days and beautiful days in particular to learn more about financial wellness and all of the tools and resources that are available. So kudos to you all for being here. My name is Mary Dyer, and I'm a financial education officer at the Finance Authority of Maine. And I'm thrilled that Todd Woodlee is joining us from iGrad. Todd is the Vice President for Client Development and Research at iGrad. And I think many of you are very familiar with iGrad, but for those of you who aren't, FAME has been a partner with iGrad, I believe, since 2012, Todd, but let me know if I've gotten that wrong. iGrad has been a phenomenal partner in supporting our financial wellness efforts statewide. And so we're really, really excited to have Todd joining us today so we can provide you with some of the many, many resources that iGrad has offered and continues to create and offer. So, as we look at this topic, and before I go over the agenda, certainly it goes without saying that we are in an unprecedented historic time. And certainly that is impacting our economy and our financial stability in a whole variety of ways. And so we think this is a really timely topic. I think that you would all agree as practitioners and professionals, and many of you who are already teaching financial education or supporting students and families in their financial capability. I think you would all agree that now more than ever, this is a critical topic. If we've learned nothing from the last many months, I think it's that, more now than ever, or now more than ever rather, we are going to need to provide students and families with this content and this information and support. And so I'm really excited that you're all here today so that we can kind of go over some of the resources that we do provide. So what I would like to talk about, just touching briefly on the impact of COVID-19 on our finances, just kind of highlighting some of the things that we're facing and that many Mainers are facing right now and will be in the coming months. So we'll kind of cover that very briefly. Then I want to go over some of the key financial strategies that we think are critical during this time. And just a brief mention of scams and just being aware of some of the resources that are available to keep your families and the communities that you're working with aware of some of the scams that are out there. And now that's a really critical thing to be sharing with the audiences that you're working with. I also want to provide you with an overview of some of the new COVID-19 resources that FAME has developed in support of you and your students. I'll touch briefly on the existing financial education and tools and resources that FAME has been offering for many years. I would expect that many of you are very familiar with those tools, so we aren't going to spend a whole lot of time on that. A little bit of additional resources, but really the second half of the webinar, what I'm most excited about is to really give Todd some time to do an overview of iGrad, sharing some of the new resources specifically for COVID-19 financial wellness matters, and giving Todd some time to do a demo. So that's really one thing that I want to leave you with, especially those of you that are unfamiliar with iGrad or are new to it. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So, obviously it goes without saying that, there have been a number of ways in which Maine students and families and citizens have been impacted financially in the last several months. I think that we would all agree that regardless of how we've been impacted, certainly some very significantly. So, there are a number of families and individuals in Maine who are currently unemployed. They've lost their jobs, their businesses have closed. Really, they're facing very dramatic financial circumstances in terms of income and loss of income. But it's really a spectrum, for many families, there's been a dramatic impact, but we've all been impacted in one way or another. There's no doubt that we're all being impacted financially, and we really need to think about the ways in which our financial lives are being impacted. Obviously, very early on, we saw a major downturn in the stock market. That was really the early sort of signs of the economic challenges that we would be facing. And thankfully, some of that has rebounded over time. But I think that was the initial shock that we experienced. And then from there, obviously, the huge, unprecedented, historic rise in unemployment. And even for employees who were, continuing to work full time or didn't lose their jobs, many have experienced, decrease in pay, decrease in hours, certainly hiring freezes or pay freezes, limitations in contributions being, made to retirement, certainly, again, very much a spectrum. And I think we're all being impacted in one way or another. On the positive side, because I think it's really good to be positive, that's a lot of gloom and doom that I just shared, but I think that we would all agree that we're being impacted in some positive ways. I know that for me in my own day-to-day life, certainly my daily spending has changed dramatically, and I'm saving, money on lots of those daily expenses that I wouldn't otherwise, be saving. So first of all, I'm not commuting to work, many of us working remotely, not commuting to work, seeing, money now that is available perhaps for saving that we would have spent otherwise. So meals out, entertainment, certainly my summer concert budget is going to change dramatically this summer. Our gym memberships, our entertainment, lots of those things are changing. Certainly not by our own choice, but certainly are impacting us. Also, we're experiencing, a situation where we might have received a stimulus check, or perhaps if we're unemployed, we're able to access unemployment with some additional resources that perhaps we did not have access to before. For many student borrowers, they're seeing a postponement of their student loan interest that's accruing on their loans and a postponement of payment. So again, for borrowers, there's been some dramatic changes in terms of loan repayment. And then as we look at interest rates going forward, if we look at the federal student loan interest rates, we're seeing, historic decline in interest rates. And so regardless of where you're at on that spectrum, and I think we need to acknowledge that we're all in very different places financially, as always, but now more than ever. We just need to acknowledge that we're all being impacted. And regardless of whether it's the extreme, very, challenging situation of unemployment, or perhaps realized resources that might be available for other opportunities to save or invest, regardless of where you're at on that spectrum, things have changed dramatically. Now, I wish that there was a sort of silver bullet that I could share with you and say, okay, here's this great new innovative solution that I want you to utilize, or I want you to tackle in this time. But the reality is the fundamental financial strategies really don't change. And so some of the things I've highlighted here in the presentation, and we, in our recent FAMES 5 on the 5th for June, that was published on June 5th, we kind of went through some of these top 5 strategies and provided a little more detail, but I want to go over them now. These are really the things that we wanted to address that we felt were universal to all consumers and all Mainers, that regardless of your financial situation, these are some of the strategies that perhaps you might tackle or consider right now during this very challenging and unique time. And so again, no silver bullet here. It's still the same financial strategies that you're very likely to be sharing with your students and families now, but we want to re-emphasize them. The one thing I want to say, and I think this will be a great discussion to have when we can all be back again in person, I think one thing I'm thinking a lot about is our behavioral changes. So we all know that, financial wellness and financial capability isn't all about knowledge. It's not all about knowing what the right things are, and following those rules and those financial rules. really what we know is a lot of our emotions and our behavior and our money mindset come into play. And what I'm really curious, to see is how will this all of this shift our money mindset and our behaviors with our finances? Will we be more conservative? Will we have, more emphasis or a mindset of saving? I think it will be really interesting in the coming months and years, because I don't think this is something that's going to go away quickly. But I think, as practitioners, we're all going to be very interested to learn and see how our mindsets shift and how our behavior shifts as well. So some of the things that we highlight in the 5 on the 5th, and I'd love for you to take a look at that, share it with your students and your families. One of the very first things we think is critical is, we want students and families to be reviewing and updating their budget. As I mentioned earlier, things have changed. Your expenses have changed. Your income has perhaps changed. Now is a really good time to review your budget and your spending plan, and really reevaluate and tweak your budget based on your current circumstances. And that's always important. As I said, these are fundamental and are, things we should be doing regardless of the situation. But I'm really good at creating a spending plan and a budget, not so good at updating that when things change. And so now's a really good time to do that. The other thing we want families to be doing is to be sure that you continue to understand and maintain and review your credit history. So really understanding what factors impact your credit score. You now have access to run your free annual credit report weekly now. So that's something, we're always emphasizing: run your credit report, become familiar with what's on your credit report, know what impacts your credit. Now's a really good time to be doing that, especially now that you can do it as frequently as you can. So really evaluating and continuing to maintain your credit history is really, really important right now. The other thing is, along with the budgeting, now is a really good time to evaluate those fixed monthly expenses. So, for those of us who perhaps might have a little bit more time on our hands because we're not out and about and, going to fairs and concerts and all those, entertainment things that we love to do in the summer, things that might not be as accessible. Maybe you have more time on your hands and could perhaps spend some time reviewing those fixed monthly expenses and making sure that you're getting the absolute best deal. Making sure that you have evaluated your cell phone, your internet, your car insurance, all of those fixed regular monthly expenses, to make sure you're not spending more than you should be. Perhaps it's time to refinance your auto loan or your car loan with rates the way, that the rates are declining. So now's a really good time to reevaluate not only your spending and your budget, but your expenses. As always, and I know this is really difficult and a really difficult suggestion for families who've lost jobs and income, but in any way that you can consider ways that you might kickstart your savings. So if you were, an individual who received that stimulus payment, but you're still employed full-time, perhaps that's a time to pay off debt or to, put that money into a savings account and begin to establish or strengthen your emergency or rainy day fund. Again, this is a challenging time for many, many families. So we don't want to, underestimate the ability or inability to really focus on savings right now. But certainly always having an eye towards savings so that you can weather some of these, financial challenges. We definitely want to focus on that. And then last but not least, and there's a ton of resources out there, and this is why the COVID-19 hub that we've created, that iGrad has created, are so useful, because we want students to be able to know where to turn for high quality, reputable resources. And so that's one thing I am so thrilled to see, that there are a tremendous number of resources out there. And certainly we want families and students to seek those out. And then the last thing on the slide here you'll see, and I just think it's really important to note, now, in any financial crisis, you are always going to have situation where scammers are going to try to take advantage of people during these times of hardship. You know, we've seen recently here in Maine a significant rise in unemployment claim scams. And so I wanted to point out that that's happening at a pretty, I think, high percentage. You know, I've already heard from friends and families and other individuals that I know who are victims of unemployment scam. So I just wanted to call out the Maine Department of Labor has some wonderful, wonderful resources to help individuals mitigate that situation and really respond to that situation if they are a victim of an unemployment scam. They created a wonderful one-pager that could be easily shared with your community because again, it is happening. We're seeing it, and we just want to really emphasize to students and families right now to beware of scams. If it sounds too good to be true, you know, you really want to be cautious. And so I think emphasizing that ongoingly is really important. So what I want to do now is just show you some of the new resources that we've created. And I actually like to, you know, do show and tell here. Because I think it's really important. I'm going to go ahead and go back here and share my screen. We have so many wonderful things and resources on the FAME website that I think sometimes finding where the resources are can be challenging. So I'm much more likely to do a show and tell to kind of just guide you to the new resources. So one of the things that we did very quickly was to create a set of COVID-19 resources. And so if you go to the FAME website, you just go to famemaine.com, and right on the homepage, if you scroll down, you'll see this orange bar, we're here for you, and it's resources for Maine families, businesses, and lenders in response to COVID-19. So if you click on that section header there, what you will then be taken to are the sets of resources that have been developed. So we have specific resources for Maine businesses, we have a set of resources specifically for Maine lenders, and then we have Maine family resources. And this is really where I want to focus. So when you click on the Maine family resources, it's going to take you initially to a page that's very focused on the COVID-19 impact on students and borrowers specifically. And so it gives some wonderful guidance regarding student loans. There's a Q&A there in terms of information about student loans, stimulus checks, some great information in terms of refunds from colleges, specific to 529 funding. It talks about financial emergencies and some of the really helpful tools and resources specifically for college students and borrowers. And then on that page, you'll see here to the right, we have the financial wellness tools and resources. And if you go ahead and click on that, you're going to see a whole list of resources there as well that are specific to financial wellness. And so we, you know, highlight obviously the support that's being offered through Maine banks and credit unions. We think it's really important for consumers to, you know, who are experiencing a financial hardship to first reach out to their financial institution to find out what type of support might be available there. That's a great first step. And then you'll see that we get into some of the other resources that are out there and available as well, whether it's the iGrad tool, which again, Todd is going to talk to you about at length. The CFPB has some wonderful resources, America Saves, and then we also go on to feature some of the free financial counseling that is available nationally. And then some additional resources beyond that. I'm going to talk in a moment about our partnership with ECMC, just as a refresher or reminder for those of you who might not be aware of it. And then last but not least on that page, I think another great place to refer your students to is 211, because that's a wonderful you know, set of resources specific for Maine residents. So I encourage you to take a look at that as well. All right, so I'm going to go back to my presentation here. All right. There we go. Great. So as I mentioned, that COVID-19 hub with the financial wellness tools and resources, we've got the impact on student borrowers page. And then as I mentioned earlier, our 5 on the 5th for June provides a more in-depth overview of the 5 tips that I just shared with you previously. So I'd love for you to take a look at those resources. The other thing I want to emphasize here as well is that FAME is very much open for business. While we are all remote right now, I want you to be aware that our customer service team is very available. So our 800 number, our email, you can reach out to us at any time. Also, our college access and financial education team are ready and available for any questions that you have, specifically for your students who are pursuing higher education or current college students who are contending with financial changes. We hope that you'll reach out to us for guidance to sort of navigate some of those issues. One of the tools that I want you to be aware of that is also available on the FAME website that we've recently updated is there's a set of resources specific to financial aid appeals. So for families who have experienced an economic hardship or a change in their financial circumstances, there's some wonderful guidance to help them through that appeal process with their financial aid office. Obviously, the financial aid office is the best resource and the best place to start in terms of that support, but we also have some guidance for you as well. So please check that out. And that's in our tools in that quick links section in the tools and calculators section. And if I have time, I'll show you that in a minute. So I'd want you to be aware that, that we're still available. We're very much full-time and here to help you. And certainly you can reach out to FAME at any time now and into the future related to any of these issues. Now, some of the existing financial wellness resources that I just want you to be aware of, many of you are familiar with and are using our Manage publication. So this is a publication that we designed for high school students, college students, and adult learners. And basically, it takes the 5 tips that I just shared and adds probably 5 or so more, really the key fundamental financial strategies with some wonderful guidance and additional resources. And so this is a free publication that you can order through the FAME website. So if you want to send multiple copies or provide multiple copies to your students, it is available to order, or you can download the PDF and share it as well. So I want you to be aware of that. We also have presentations available. We have a companion presentation to manage, or we have presentations where we've taken segments of the publication and done a very focused presentation on a particular topic. So we want you to be aware of that. Obviously presentations, those of you familiar with the CAFE team and Mila and Jess and Nikki and Maria and Filarica, our whole team, they're wonderful and all very willing and available to offer a presentation to your students. Obviously those presentations right now are virtual, but I know that despite the virtual model, we're actually seeing great participation. And so if you're looking for a specific session for your students in your community, certainly let us know. We do have many events already scheduled, our financial aid presentations, but certainly reach out to one of us if that's something that you would like to offer to your students. And then last but not least, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Claim Your Future is both a classroom-based and a digital tool that we've created to provide students with some education around education and training after high school, future careers, and financial wellness. And so if you're not familiar with it, you can go to claimyourfuture.com. You'll see a great background about the game and the tool, and there is an online digital version. So it might be something that you want to use with your students now, particularly those of you who are working with high school students or middle school students. It's a great tool for that community. And then last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, and we're going to be sending information out about this soon, but on August 4th, we will be hosting, FAME will be hosting its first ever virtual Financial Aid 101 session. So this was our event that would have been on March 13th, that of course was postponed due to the current situation. So we have shifted and pivoted to a virtual model. And so that event will be offered from 8:30 to 1:30, again on August 4th. And this is again our financial aid session. We invite all of you who are on the webinar today to join us. It's really a wonderful training opportunity presented by the CAFE team, specifically for school counselors, financial aid professionals, access providers, adults. And really it's open to anybody who wants to learn more about financial aid, you know, and in support of their students. So we hope that you'll join us. It is free, it is virtual. It's the first of its kind for us in terms of offering it in a virtual format. And we're really, really super excited about it. All right, real quickly, and I'm going to turn it over to Todd. I want you also to be aware of another statewide partnership that we offer here in Maine. We have partnered with ECMC Solutions to provide student loan counseling to Maine borrowers. And so essentially, we've facilitated a partnership between Maine higher education institutions and ECMC. And what ECMC does is that when a student leaves school, whether it's because they have withdrawn or they've graduated, they provide direct student loan counseling to that borrower during their grace period. They also provide counseling and begin a more directed outreach to the borrower should they become delinquent. And then in addition to that, for students while they're in school, they can reach out to the ECMC student loan counselors while in college to ask questions about student loan borrowing, student loan repayment. Perhaps they're trying to figure out how to make their interest payments on their unsubsidized loans. Those kind of, you know, in-school issues that arise, they can certainly reach out to ECMC as well. So that's a partnership that we facilitated. Every student at that is attending the University of Maine system, any of the system schools, the Maine Community College system, they're all have access to that program. Thomas College is also a participating institution as well. So just wanting you to be aware that we have, in addition to the financial wellness support and those resources that we offer both through FAME and through our partnership with iGrad, we also have a very focused student loan repayment and borrower support services that are being offered through ECMC. And that's, again, free to the borrower. They're not paying for any of those services. So just wanting you to be aware of that. And then a few other things to mention. We want you to be aware of the Maine and National Jumpstart Coalitions. If you're not familiar with the wonderful financial wellness supports and resources and training that are available through these two entities, please reach out to me. I serve as president of the Maine Jumpstart Coalition. If you go to mejumpstart.org, you're going to find a ton of information. Our major focus in Maine is to provide training to teachers. So we just hosted our big virtual training in May, and all of those recordings of those sessions are available. But we want you to be aware of the free resources and training available through Maine Jumpstart as well. So if you're not, just reach out to me and I'm happy to share information with you. Also, I love to highlight Next Gen Personal Finance. They have some wonderful classroom curriculum, tools, and resources available to you for free. So if you're unfamiliar with Next Gen Personal Finance, please check that out as well, especially if you're in the early stages of building a financial literacy class or personal finance economics class at your school. They're a wonderful resource to tap into. I mentioned CFPB earlier. They have some wonderful youth financial capability resources. mymoney.gov has some great tools, and again, the Council on Economic Education. So I just wanted to highlight a few of these. You have the PowerPoint presentation, so you can take a look at these later, but these are some of the, I think, best in class and most trusted resources that are out there that we really like to highlight. So before I turn it over to Todd, I just want to kind of give you an overview of how we partner with iGrad. There's a few different ways, and again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've partnered with iGrad since 2012. And so this is a long-standing partnership, and we're really thrilled, and I'm going to turn it over to Todd for him to dive into it. But basically there's three components, if you will. So we have through our partnership with iGrad, what we call our FAME sponsored site. So this is a digital financial wellness tool, a free digital financial wellness tool that is available to any high school student, college student in Maine, parents, adult learners. It's really kind of what we think of as sort of our generic FAME sponsored site. We have branded it as the Invest in Me Student Financial Wellness Tool, but it's really open to anybody. You don't have to be affiliated with any specific high school, college. It's really an open tool, and you can sign up and use the resources. In addition to that, we also have an employee-sponsored site that we offer to FAME employees and any individuals, in Maine who want specific employee financial wellness tools and resources. And so this is powered through iGrad through their Enrich platform. But we offer this, again, free to employees. So it's still iGrad, but it has a different set of resources that are featured and promoted that are specific to individuals who are working. So we use it for our FAME employee financial wellness program, and we encourage you to use it with your employees as well. And then last but not least, we have supported the creation of co-branded sites at each and not every school in Maine is participating, but the vast majority are. And so again, as I mentioned, the University of Maine system, the Maine Community College system, this is just an example of one of the school co-branded sites. So this is the University of Southern Maine. So this particular version of iGrad is basically available to students attending the University of Southern Maine. And so it's very specific to that institution. It's, again, still iGrad, but co-branded with USM and specific to that population. So those are kind of the three ways that we are using iGrad. And I'm going to turn it over to Todd now so he can give you a little bit more detail and background. I'm going to stop my screen share, Todd, which should give you the ability to share your screen.
Okay. Can you see my screen, Mary?
Yep, sure can. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Mary, for that. And as Mary mentioned, we've had a wonderful partnership now with FAME since 2012, and as you've seen from the co-branded platforms and then the platforms for the individual schools as well, we've expanded that relationship. So it's great to be with everyone today to kind of walk through, as Mary asked me to do, is really to walk through an overview of iGrad. We'll focus a little bit as we talked about, as Mary mentioned, this platform, while the iGrad platform is our platform in the college and university space, as well as the high school space, we really focus on that high school student as they transition to college, college students as they transition through college and then into career. And then with employers, we focus our efforts in the brand that you will see as Enrich. So you may see the brand iGrad and Enrich. We launched iGrad in 2009, and we're on hundreds of college campuses across the country, and we're very excited, as I mentioned, to be partnered with FAME, to be able to offer our program to all of the system schools in the state of Maine, as well as offering resources, as you see here, and as Mary mentioned, that are also available to the citizens of Maine, as well as the high school students of Maine, to help them prepare for college and beyond, and also for families to help them better understand how to pay for college, along with the resources that FAME offers. And I will tell you, we work with a lot of states, we work with a lot of colleges, as I mentioned earlier, across the country, but the work that FAME is doing and Mary and her team are doing to support the efforts there in the state is pretty incredible, pretty amazing. Including the recent response to the COVID-19 issues and crisis that we're all facing now, which has an impact for all of us in a financial way. So commend you for the work that you're doing. And thank you all for being on today. So what I thought I would do in the interest of time and to provide everyone with a nice overview is to use the FAME platform that is geared toward that high school student or college student, and use that as an example to provide an overview of the content, how it works, etc. as we go through the platform. So as Mary mentioned, we also launched a COVID-19 response on March 23rd, some resources that all of our clients could use or integrate within their programming for whether it be their students or their employees. So we created a hub that is now part of each of the platforms that we have. You can see this one is on the FAME platform, so you've got resources on FAME. You've got resources here within the iGrad platform as well. We are strictly a financial education, financial wellness company. So we develop and curate all of our own content in-house and with subject matter experts. So we've created somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 resources over the last 2.5 months related to the crisis as it impacts all of us, as I mentioned earlier, from a financial standpoint. So here you can see some of the different resources that are available. So just know that this is one of the components of the Financial Wellness Hub that is provided to you free from FAME. So I'm just kind of scrolling through so that you can see the different resources that are available. As Mary also mentioned, we have the platforms that are co-branded for a lot of the colleges and universities in the state of Maine. Each of the platforms has the ability to be customized when it comes to specific content that may be more relevant for that particular institution. It also provides a much more detailed level of reporting at the co-brand level. So there is some benefits. There's also over 100 different configuration options for the platform. So if it's a co-branded platform, in addition to featuring content, there's the ability to feature different courses, bring in custom content that may have been created by the university that they want to include in the platform. So there's a lot of different configuration, customization options that are part of the standard iGrad offering that is being provided through FAME. So the platform is provided into a few different areas. You can see here topics, and under the general topics hub, here you can see at this particular co-brand, the resources are being profiled here around the coronavirus hub. So it takes you to that hub, but it could be information on scholarships, paying for college, credit, budgeting, savings, resources that we either have in our platform or that you have that you want to pull into the platform. We can highlight all of those. You can see on the left here of the topics, in the topics area, you can see that we create content, as I mentioned earlier, and develop and curate all of our own content. You can see that this was just posted today on our platform by Lizzie Jennings. Lizzie's actually a new employee of ours. We just hired her about 2 weeks ago. She was a journalism major at USC in Southern California, and she's now one of our content coordinators. So she's created some content, as you see here, around keeping your resume current in this particular time. So we have a lot of career resources, financial wellness resources, scholarship and paying for college resources, student loan resources. So I just wanted to point out that anything that we have added or adding to the platform can be found here under latest. You can see there's resources around health savings accounts, etc. There's some custom content being featured that's specific to Maine, as you see here in the middle section. So it just gives you an idea of the breadth of customization and resources that are available. And then if I go into a specific topic, you can see that there's resources on those specific topics in this area. So here's our managing money topics. One of the things that we learned years ago is that it's very important for an online digital platform to really connect with the user and not just communicate information at the user. So one of the things that we do is we create a very relevant experience by tailoring the experience for the end user. So if they're a 16, 17, 18-year-old high school student transitioning to college, their experience is going to be very different than, say, a 25-year-old graduate student, or maybe an individual who's mid-career going back to school, or mid-career that's employed, that's on the same employee platform. So we do that through assessments. So we have 2 assessments that are built into the platform. We have a financial wellness checkup. We also have, and Mary mentioned this earlier, and I could not agree more, a big component of what we focus on in the area of improving and changing financial well-being, improving behaviors, is that behavioral finance component. So we actually also created a Your Money Personality Assessment, which is a 40-question Likert Scale instrument, very much similar to like a Myers-Briggs, and the individual can get a persona in 5 different areas around their money personality. So it really helps them better understand their relationship with money, provides them with some self-awareness when it comes to spending and their spending habits and their overall relationship with money, as I mentioned. We have 20+ courses. We've added some new courses, one very timely on emergency fund and setting up an emergency savings fund that just launched last week. Getting out of debt and avoiding debt just launched last week as well. And the courses are 10 to 20 minutes in length. And for the most part, some will be a little longer, some will be a little shorter. It's adaptive in nature, just like our platform is as well. So there's a few questions at the beginning to let us know what level of understanding this individual already has about the topic. Also, we ask questions about how they feel about the subject as well. And then we can tailor that course for them, just as we tailor the entire experience for the user through the assessments. Within each of these courses, there is a pre-test and there's also a post-test. And in the reporting console, all of our clients will get access to the pre and post-test scores, making sure that the individual's completed the course. A lot of our first-year experience, classroom experiences that are being offered require 2 to 3 courses to be taken, and then they can track their engagement, also track their assessment scores and their competency level with those topics, etc. So we have the general topics with resources like articles, videos, infographics, etc. And then we also have calculators that are built in, analyzer tools, videos I mentioned, and then the courses as well. So we have a lot of content focused on the different topics that are presented in different formats. So we also find out a little bit about the individual in terms of how they like to learn. And we will, if an individual migrates more to videos versus articles, we're going to recommend more content that's relevant to them, or areas that they may have an interest, or maybe savings for their goals. We'll recommend that content in those formats. So here you can see a user dashboard. So in order to get to this point, the individual has has either signed up for the platform, as you saw earlier. There was a sign up section in the top right. So for those FAME sites that Mary mentioned that are sponsored for you, or your individual school sites that you have, a lot of those sites, we also have single sign-on integration within the student portal that gives that individual student access via single sign-on, really streamlines that experience. But there's always going to be the ability to sign up, and it's as simple as first name, last name, email address, and password. And then the individual can either engage in a resource or go through one of the assessments. If they go through the onboarding assessment, which is about a 20-question assessment, it's going to ask them questions about where they are in their educational journey, where, some of the money basics questions. We ask them questions like, how stressed are you on a scale of 1 to 5 about your finances? And then We also follow that up with what are those areas of finances that are stressing you the most. We ask about their credit, their debt situation. We ask questions about their financial goals and savings. And then we also ask questions around protection. So there's some questions about what insurances they have. So we can educate students that may be renting about renter's insurance, for example, things of that nature. But we ask about insurances. We even ask if they have an estate plan or a will. Obviously, that's typically more applicable for those that are in their career, but we do ask, it's very comprehensive, so we do ask those questions of all of our users so that we can get a better understanding of where they are in their financial journey, and then what's important to them to help understand their values so that we can tailor the end experience for them. So within the user dashboard, you can see that I already have content that's being recommended based on how I completed that assessment. So here are some courses that are being recommended to me based. Here's a basic banking course, a budgeting course, a financial understanding, creating financial plan for your priorities and goals. Obviously, I indicated that I have student loans. We also have an aggregator tool that's built into the platform. So it allows the individual student, if they have student loan debt, to go out to what used to be an SLDS, to their My Student Data file, and be able to pull that debt in and interact with that with labor statistics. They get to know, I know one of the things that a lot of the community colleges, particularly in the state of Maine, liked when we had the training webinar, is that in doing this, it really helps connect that individual borrower to their servicer and how to connect with that servicer. So a lot of times the servicer names you don't necessarily readily identify with your student loans. So this gives them the ability to have that in one place, be able to do some analysis around their debt levels, around repayment. It gives them an idea of what their monthly payment will be based on their debt level, which a lot of our research shows us that students have a tendency to overestimate their income and underestimate their student loan debt repayment. So we want to connect those dots earlier in the process. So you can see there's content that's being recommended to me. If I had indicated that I did not have student loans, the student loan snapshot option would not have come up for me, for example. And then here you can see some resources, budgeting, emergency fund. I indicated I was interested in learning more about retirement. So here you can see there's even some resources about everything you need to know about retirement as well. So in the topics area, the recommendations continue to follow me through the process. Here you see on the right now there's recommendations as well. So there's resources that are relevant for me. The courses we've already gone through. But finally, one of the last few things I wanted to mention is in our tools area, we created as a result of schools coming to us several years ago saying we do not like the solicitations that students get on typical scholarship search engines. So we created a proprietary search engine where we vet the resources. It allows, if it's a co-branded platform for an institutional, specific institution, they can upload their institutional scholarships into this, and it will always highlight those first. But we do have a scholarship search. We also have very similar component. You can't really talk about financial wellness and financial education without really spending some time on career resources. So we have a job search component. We have career resources as well. We have a financial aid coaches series where there's short videos on different topics that are specific. We have a very interactive and dynamic budgeting tool that is available. It can be customized. They can learn more about the individual topics as well. And then finally, real quick, I do want to share the Your Money Personality Analysis. This is the output document. So the output for the onboarding assessment are the recommendations and the prescriptive plan for the individual user. And then for the Your Money Personality Assessment, it is, like I said, it takes about 3 to 5 minutes to complete. And it provides anywhere from, there's 2 to 4 different personas in each of the different categories. So here you see in the case of emotions around finances, this particular user is cautious, what it means, how they compare to others, their strengths, their challenges, and then it kind of gets into their strategies around how they may want to approach financial decision making. Here you can see optimistic, what it means, The instructors that we talk to, whether they're teaching a first-year experience course or a 4-credit, 1 hour to 3 hour credit course in personal finance, have indicated to us that this has been a game changer for them in the classroom, because what better way to introduce personal finance to an individual than to help them learn about themselves? And I know a lot of the push toward college and university and helping students transition is really that self-awareness piece. So here's an opportunity to engage students with helping them better understand about their relationship with finances. So this has been a great resource for college students and colleges and universities to engage their students within the resources. So I am going to stop here. I know that was kind of a quick overview. I do want to thank Mary for this opportunity and for the partnership, and commend again the work that you're doing, and then open it up for any questions that you may have. And please know that we at iGrad are here to support you along with the team at FAME to develop and help build out your financial wellness programming, especially during this summertime and fall when students are really engaging in resources from the university or the high school in a very different way, much more digital, and being able to have resources that you can send out in a very targeted, directed, well-communicated strategic campaign can really get some nice engagement rates and really help improve the value and increase the value, I should say, of the brand that's that the platform is being offered under. So, Mary, is there anything else that you would like for me to touch on?
No, I think that was great. I just want to emphasize what you said about the My Money personality tool. I think that is such a phenomenal assessment, and what you receive, in that kind of personalized feedback, and not only the challenges and the strengths, but then the recommendations that come with it. So as part of our employee financial wellness program, we really encourage that individuals utilize that tool as a starting point. So I can't say enough about that particular tool, and the courses themselves, of course, that, those are really valuable as well. The one thing I just want to mention to the attendees today is, if you are, obviously the colleges who have their own co-branded customized sites also have access to their own administrative school portal, where they can download marketing materials and promotional materials in order to raise awareness for their students that this tool is available. And we recommend that they do that. And if they need help to learn how to do that, we're here, and Todd and the team at iGrad can help. I did also want to share that if there are, K-12, professionals or others on the call who are working, with various access programs or adult ed programs, if you're looking for a tool or a resource that you can share to promote iGrad to your students, certainly let me know, because we can work with iGrad to do something very customized for your students so that they're aware that this tool is available. So you don't have to go it alone and be your own graphic designer and marketer. I will tell you that iGrad has phenomenal tools and can customize the resources they've developed. So just some of the questions for the group, I've answered most of them instantly in the Q&A, but there was a question about whether or not borrowers need to sign up for ECMC, and they certainly do not. The participating colleges are automatically sending the student borrower information to ECMC, and they also have been granted access to the students' information, so it's automatic. Certainly ECMC is going to proactively then reach out to that student, but if students want to reach out to ECMC, that's available as well. The other question I had was whether or not high school students can use or create accounts with iGrad. That is absolutely the case. So they can go to fame.igrad.com and set up a free account. They can do the money personality. They'll have access to all of the courses. And then in the event that they matriculate or end up enrolling at a participating iGrad school, Todd, tell me how that converts. I believe I understand it, but I've got the expert on the webinar today. So you want to explain that to folks?
Yes, so it will match the name, and if it sees a different password or email address coming through, it will ask some questions, and then we can get them integrated within the single sign-on portal if the school has single sign-on, or get them transitioned over to the co-branded platform so that they can carry over the work that they've already done on the platform. So, and one of the things I wanted to mention from a longitudinal standpoint as well is the onboarding assessment is something that we recommend, you know, the users take every 3 to 6 months so that we can see is their stress level reducing, et cetera. Whereas the money personality is kind of a one and done, but it's a great exercise for that. And then I did not get into the action plans or certificates of completion, but know that the user also gets with each course a personalized action plan as well. So just some things to keep in mind.
That's great. The other question, Todd, that I'm going to let you answer is whether or not, I think I know the answer to the first part, would you recommend the money personality assessment for high school students? I would say absolutely. And then is there a particular grade level that you would recommend that this be, you know, offered to?
Yes, really that high school sophomore, junior, senior, and transitioning into college. We really have stayed very laser focused on that kind of 16-year-old all the way through retirement with our resources. So while we do have, you know, high schools that are using it maybe for some of the younger populations, what they typically do is they'll take some of the resources and maybe use those in a classroom or something versus having them sign up. But really that high school, sophomore, junior, senior, all the way through is where it's most applicable. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. The one other thing I would add, you know, I obviously as an employee of FAME, I have my own employee iGrad account. And then I also, my son has an iGrad account as a college student. And the one thing I can tell you, because don't tell anybody, but I do sometimes read his email, you know, he's not being inundated by, you know, all of these emails from iGrad and or third party ads. And, you know, they're not selling student data, and you're not going to have your inbox filled with spam and, you know, promotional information from other entities. When he gets an email from iGrad, it's a very high quality communication encouraging him to do something, you know, within the site. And it's usually timely, you know, based on where he's at in the academic year. And they're not, you know, once a day. You know, they really are very careful about the number of times that they're emailing students. I'd love to say that he responds to all of them, Todd, and follows all of the steps and activities that you're recommending. But I haven't quite gotten there yet. So I certainly appreciate all of those of you on the phone or on the webinar who can't get your students to do all of the things that you're encouraging them to do. But that I think is important to note, that by signing up, your high school students aren't going to be inundated by a bunch of spam and tons of unnecessary emails. So I think that's very
typically no more than 3 to 4 weeks. No more often than 3 to 4 weeks. We'll have a nudge to say, hey, we saw that you viewed the budgeting course last time. Would you be interested in learning more about savings? Here's a companion savings course. So it's just things like that that builds in some calls to actions. What we found historically with college students in particular, and I was just on a panel last spring when we could do conferences at the NASPA conference, but a couple of the universities that we work with did some research on how many students came back to the platform on their own and how many completed multiple courses, even though they may have only been required to complete 3. And it was pretty incredible, because the thing about it, to your point, is it has to be very, what's in it for me? And we focus on the why it's important versus the what it is. And the messaging, we really key in on that because we focus so much on that engagement. So we really have less of a challenge getting users back, interestingly enough, than getting them there to begin with. But once they come, they usually come back to the platform.
That's great. Thank you, Todd. And the last thing I'll leave you with, and we'll conclude for today, but if you're thinking about ways to engage students, whether it be high school students or college students, I think that, you know, incentives aren't necessarily a bad thing. You know, hosting a sweepstakes. We recently, as part of our employee financial wellness program, had a challenge in the month of February where we said to our employees, you know, the employee who completes the most courses in the month of February will win a $50 gift card. We were shocked to learn that we had many employees who said, okay, I completed them all, now what? You know, so it was amazing. You know, and perhaps it's not $50, maybe it's, you know, $10 or, you know, but those incentives I think can be very, very motivating. And we had an unbelievable uptick in usage at Fame through our employee wellness program, just with that one little incentive. So think about ways, you know, if that's something that you want to encourage and you want to engage students, how can you incentivize that? And, you know, what you can do is just have them print their certificate of completion for the courses, and, you know, that they can use that as evidence that they've completed the course. Great. Well, I think we will conclude the webinar for today. I want to thank Todd so much for being willing to join us today and share all of the wonderful free resources available through iGrad. Again, if you want more information or you have questions or you need marketing materials, just reach out to one of us, and you know, certainly we're here to help, and we're just so glad that you were able to join us today. And again, as a reminder, August 4th at 8:30 for our virtual Financial Aid 101 training. And with that, we're going to sign off for today, and hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.